Hey everybody, about a month ago I was going to make this exact video, but then I changed my mind after people voted overwhelmingly against it, and to be honest, I was also feeling a bit fatigued of the Assassin's Creed Shadows topic, especially after working on a 2-hour long breakdown of it. But now though, we're definitely getting into it because what we already knew, but could only mostly speculate based off of information surrounding it, has been confirmed through recent information. Assassin's Creed Shadows has not been doing well at all, contrary to the copium that people have been huffing. But first, let me take you back to what happened a month ago that was going to make me work on this video in the first place. Oh, and before we jump in, there may be other game footage spliced in between this video because honestly, if I don't want to look at more Assassin's Creed Shadows while editing, you probably don't want to look at it either. So, this all started right here. Matt Piscatella, an industry analyst, posted that apparently Assassin's Creed Shadows had been the best-selling video game in the US for each of its first 3 weeks in market, according to Circana's retail tracking service, which is his service. This is specifically referring to actual sales at retail stores, and again, in each of its first 3 weeks since launch, which is from the 20th of March all the way to the 10th of April. And as of the time that he posted that on his Blue Sky account...
Anything for you, sweetheart.
What are you I had some really good work there, you...
There's a lot more where that came from, Holmes.
In the 14th of April, it ranked number 2 behind Monster Hunter Wilds. We are going to get to these numbers and how irrelevant they are in just a second. But first, of course, as you can see in the screenshot, the Actman posted this and captioned it with, "It is a tragic day for all Assassin's Creed Shadows haters." A bad day for me? Hell no, brother, it's always a good day whenever I can make a video on your shitposts. I couldn't resist but ask why in the comments, of course, because at the end of the day, does it matter? Have these supposed great sales during these 3 weeks meant anything? Have they stopped Ubisoft stock from plummeting? Did it stop Ubisoft from needing to sacrifice chunks of themselves with that deal with Tencent in order to survive? Were these sales significant enough to have Ubisoft finally stop hiding their actual sales figures behind player engagement? More importantly, is the game itself good? Is it better somehow? Of course, the answer to all of these is no. So I asked why, and if product sales meant anything at all. Like for example, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Was this movie supposedly good just because it sold a lot of tickets? We all know how much of a disaster that was, and we all know that huge properties like these always manage to scrounge up sales because of the brand name. For as long as that brand name has weight, there'll always be normies who aren't up to date with the news or up to date with the studio's recent performances going out and buying these games or movie tickets, then they play it or watch it, get disappointed, and then the next product after that suffers for it. And if it's a bad product again, then this cycle goes on until that brand name is severely damaged, which is what happened with Disney Star Wars. Then I also slapped a screenshot of their market capital over the past 4 weeks at that time, and oh, what a surprise, they were still boned. In fact, it's still boned to this day. You can look it up right now, it's still in the dumps. And much to my surprise, in came the mighty Keef to join the party, defend his favorite flop of 2025, and of course the Actman. It's funny because a couple of months ago I made a video of more copium and shilling, and they were the prime feature of it, defending Shadows for whatever reason, with some of the dumbest crap I've seen them say. The video is right here, I'll leave the link in the description and on the top comment if you want to check it out. All he did throughout this interaction was ignore the points I was making and being intellectually dishonest, genuinely believing that Assassin's Creed Shadows was a success because what, Matt Piscatella says so? Or because the game's media at the time was also saying so? I tried to point out that we still had no actual sales data anywhere, and all that we had was that terrible 3 million player figure, and the entire topic of Assassin's Creed Shadows' success was drenched in dishonest and false reporting, with huge outlets such as PC Gamer and Variety trying to mislead people into believing that those player numbers were actual sales. Something that worked beautifully, by the way. For instance, if you ask Grok about it, you know, the AI over at X, if you ask for Assassin's Creed Shadows sales, Grok will tell you that the game sold 3 million copies because what Grok does is read a bunch of mainstream media articles with no concern for bias whatsoever. This is why I think people should be cautious when thinking of replacing their Google searching with just asking Grok stuff. But anyway, Keef just ended up pretending like he doesn't know what I'm talking about and that it's unrelated, so once again I reiterated I actually named the PC Gamer and Variety outlets, and I also brought up another key detail which we'll talk about later, which is the number of hours played being terribly low when compared to their announcement of 3 million players, indicating that people are dropping out of the game like flies. This is not a sign of success, it's a sign of a game sucking. But he just came back, addressed none of it, and just dismissed everything, commenting that I'm writing essays on Twitter, angry that Assassin's Creed Shadows is doing well, at which point I dipped out. I mean, an essay? Brother, it's 5 paragraphs. And it was 5 paragraphs of information that he was woefully uninformed about. Hence why I wrote it in the first place. If 5 paragraphs are an essay for this guy, I'm not at all surprised that he can't understand what the fuck is going on with Assassin's Creed Shadows sales figures or anything at all, honestly. If this was too much for him, I don't imagine that he's reading articles or informing himself with anything other than TikTok videos. And apparently he's also fine with mainstream media outlets in the gaming space lying to him and everyone else with false data, and also doesn't see the discrepancy between 3 million players and 40 million hours of playtime. Again, not surprising at all for someone who can't read 5 sentences, but anyway, let's get to those numbers from the original post. So the reason why I already thought back then that Matt Piscatella's post was irrelevant was because if you look at the games that came out during that 3-week period that he said Shadows was leading in over in America, you will understand that there wasn't a goddamn thing standing in its way. Let me name a few games that came out during that time. Atelier Yuma, The Alchemist of Memories, Bleach, Rebirth of Souls, the first Berserker Kazan, which is actually awesome and people should definitely have bought this one instead of Shadows. Also on the same day, Atomfall. I just finished it a couple of days ago, by the way. I did 2 endings, it was freaking amazing. Both of these games would have been a far better purchase instead of Shadows. However, it's understandable that a game in the Assassin's Creed franchise would beat 2 new IPs from smaller and far lesser known studios. But let's name a few more. Gal Guardians, Servants of the Dark, Inaya Life After Gods, Karma The Dark World, Rift of the Necrodancer, Saga Frontier 2 Remastered, Autopsy Simulator, what the fuck is it? Croc Legend of Gobos, like do you get it yet? There was nothing during these weeks to stand against it. All the bigger releases happened earlier in February, such as Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, and a few others. If Shadows had released in February 14th, as it was supposed to before yet another delay, this game would have been even more cooked and a post like this wouldn't exist. It sold more than other games during that period except Monster Hunter Wilds because there was nothing else. I can't even find some of these games on retail stores. And while we're at it, let me also clarify another thing because I don't understand what goes on in the minds of people like the Man Mighty Keef, Synth Potato, who was also featured in that other video 2 months ago. People ragging on Shadows aren't expecting this game not to sell. You can go back on my channel and check out this video, for example. In the video, I make it pretty clear that I'm not expecting this game to flop like a fish, as in to not break any sales that are correspondent to its massive franchise name, but I do make it pretty clear that there's very little chance that it would sell enough to save Ubisoft or sell enough to live up to its name. Assassin's Creed Shadows is a failure in more ways than one. These people are just scoping hard as fuck with semantics to pretend that it's not. And there's more of this too, like it's not just them. I got some comments in my own videos as well. Let me read a couple. Wow, I have never disagreed with a video more in my life. I think you're completely wrong on almost every take here. Well, the like and dislike ratio would actually disagree with you here, but anyway. Especially when it comes to stuff like combat. Glad the game's doing well though. Another one. The game is selling as well as any other AC game. I don't get how that's scope. this whole video feels like you are just making excuses to make your viewpoint seem like the truth. You call people triggered, but you made multiple hour-long videos on something you clearly don't even like. Of course, everyone hates the gaming community when this kind of content is the standard for video game creators now. Boy, there's a lot to unpack here. First, at the time of this comment, there was no sales figures at all. All we had was a very widespread net of 3 million players, not all of which were sales. So no, this wasn't selling as well as any other AC game, and stick around for later in the video where we have more information about this. Second, a correction. I made one 2-hour-long video breaking down Assassin's Creed Shadows with examples as to why it's so bad. And I did this because I like to be detailed. If I'm going to be harsh on the game, I want to explain why. I want to lay out my points, my arguments, and my examples to show people why. And the funny thing is that if I just made like a 20-minute video just speeding past all of these points, then the complaints from people like this guy would be that I didn't even give the game a chance, I didn't even actually play the game, I didn't actually present any arguments, I didn't give any examples, I just yapped for 20 minutes and that was it. Then the other videos covering the controversy around the game don't have excuses, they have data, and calling out lies from the media, taking that data and misrepresenting it. Excuses are coming from people who put on blinders and keep coping about this game doing well when it clearly hasn't. Also, is this a game developer or something? Like, what do you mean everyone hates the gaming community? Speak for yourself. Plenty of content out there of all different shapes and sizes, but when you make a shitty game and then you find controversies surrounding the game, of course there's going to be a lot of negative content around it, because the game itself and everything surrounding it is negative. Maybe if you stopped excusing it all, you'd understand that very simple concept. And finally, just another one of these going, meanwhile the game sold well. Sold well? What do you mean sold well? Where are these people getting their fucking data from? Do you see what I mean? Media outlets, or worse, the fucking CEO himself, will literally just lie and throw that adjective in there to mislead investors and normies on the reality of the situation, and then people like this will believe it because the media said it. Do you see why Gamergate is what it is? Do you see why it happens? Because the game's media is insanely biased. They don't even write articles to inform, nor do they do their job to keep studios and companies accountable. They literally act as an arm of theirs. They just exist to push whatever narratives and agendas that they need with the aid of the reach and the perceived legitimacy that they have as official news outlets. Shadows did not sell well. To this day, they haven't even revealed those numbers, like they're still keeping it hidden. Shadows simply sold. Anyone would expect it to at least sell as an Assassin's Creed game. That's a huge name in this industry, of course it's going to move copies. But it didn't sell well, and it sure as shit isn't a success. If it was, Ubisoft wouldn't be in the position that they are in, and they wouldn't be hiding those figures. In fact, they'd be doing the opposite because that's what you would want to do, especially at the time to gain leverage against Tencent and their demands for the deal that they made, which were devastating for Ubisoft. Success is also measured differently depending on who you're talking about. This is an argument I see some really stupid people make online. For example, when Expedition 33 released, it did so to around 70,000 concurrent players on Steam. This obviously eventually blew way past that and into 145,000, but at that time, people were already celebrating this being a successful figure at around 70 and 80,000 players in its first couple of days. And some morons were coming out saying, oh, okay, so Veilguard gets 89,000 players and it's a massive flop, but Expedition gets the same and it's a resounding success, huh? Okay, chud grifter. And, yes, this does kind of track. Do I need to explain this? Smaller scale games and brand new IPs from smaller, lesser known studios and made with far smaller budgets obviously need far less sales to be profitable than something from a big, famous studio as a sequel to a long-running, highly esteemed franchise, made with big-ass $100 million budgets. How is this complicated to anyone? The same goes for measuring success. If doing it with games is too complicated to understand, go about it in a YouTuber kind of way. If a channel with 1 million subscribers makes a video and it gets 10,000 views, that's a flop. That's a terrible number. That's like when I release a video I worked for days on and it plateaus at like 3,000 views. But if a channel with 1,000 subscribers makes a video and it hits 10,000 views, that's great. That's a successful video. I don't understand how this very simple concept is being totally missed by some people. A game like Veilguard or Assassin's Creed Shadows can't just be selling the same, or at times even less, than what AA or indie games are doing. This is actually something that happened between Shadows and Schedule 1, which we'll get to in a second. A lot of money goes into these big major AAA games, especially at Ubisoft. Are you kidding me? They've got like 20,000 fucking employees. This company is more bloated than Rosie O'Donnell and more mismanaged than Homer Simpson running the Springfield nuclear power plant. Shadows not only underperformed in this notion, where an Assassin's Creed game, the first mainline entry in 4 years, biggest gap between games we've ever seen so far, should have broken huge numbers, especially as it's set in Japan, hands down the most requested setting for this franchise, but it also underperformed in terms of what Ubisoft needed to stabilize itself after years and years of ignoring player feedback and making gradually weaker games while hiding behind the game's media and the shills that they fly out to preview events to cover for them. They come out with this limp-dicked 3 million players engaged bullshit as if it was meant to mean anything. 3 million players isn't shit when the admission cost is a mere $18 via their subscription service. If this is the measure that they wanted to use, they should have had at least 12 million players at launch. Like, that's the conversion rate. If you want to use player numbers, then you have to calculate it in a way that makes sense by taking into account that, again, the price is about a fourth of an actual sale. So if you're going to pass off the image of success, you better be reporting 4 times more players. It's also what makes sense for the brand that it is. Like, for example, let's say a huge game from a massive franchise in this industry was about to drop tomorrow, and simultaneously it would be fully available for just $18 on a subscription service across all platforms. Wouldn't you expect this number to take off? Wouldn't you expect super excited people from across the world to jump in via that subscription service, especially people who couldn't afford to just drop $70 or $80 down right off the get-go? I don't make the rules, I just do the math. If they want people to actually believe that Shadows has been a success, this is what they have to report, and those are the numbers that should be there for it. They can either do this or the one thing that would be way simpler, just report the actual sales number next to the subscription numbers. It's so simple. These companies act like they can only do one or the other. No, you can do both. And then nobody has to guess and assume that you are hiding numbers because you're underperforming. Which was the case, because now we actually do have some sales numbers, or at least we have an estimate of it from Alinea Analytics. They report that the sales numbers for Shadows during this time were 367,000 copies on Steam, followed by 1.2 million copies on PlayStation 5. There's no estimations for Xbox, but we do know that it was the weakest performing of the three, so we're not talking about much more than that. Man, even Schedule 1 sold more copies on Steam than Shadows did across 3 platforms. God damn. This is a bad day for Assassin's Creed Shadows haters? Brother, apparently this is a fantastic day for Assassin's Creed Shadows haters. Break out the champagne, boys.
Forever love this.
This is why they only go on about 3 million players, guys. It's because they can't go and report to their investors or to the media that they scored less than 2 million sales in March for the brand new quadruple A game in the titan of the industry that is the Assassin's Creed franchise. They have to keep that shit ambiguous so that we assume that, nah, I'm sure it's mostly sales and then only a couple hundred of the subscription service. But if that's the case, they would at least goddamn say it to try and look good, instead of this whole rigmarole where they're just coping and seething.
You just can't accept what you're seeing.
Instead, they hide it and report that misleading player number bullshit. Then in comes the media, deceitfully comparing it to Kingdom Come Deliverance's 2 sales figures, full sales, while Ubisoft does the same by comparing them to Valhalla's 3.5 million copies sold in its first week. Again, full sales, or in this case, mostly full sales, not this Ubisoft Connect subscription bullshit, which at the time was only available on PC and Google Stadia. By the way, do you guys remember Google Stadia? Now those were the days, huh? Anyway, there was also another argument that I've heard from Upper Echelon, whose video I also responded to, link in the description and top comment, but I've heard it again here and there on social media, so let's get to it one more time. The argument is that because so many companies these days make money via microtransactions and other forms of monetization, Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be incredibly successful because those 3 million players are 3 million extra chances for recurring spending in the game by buying more outfits or special fake currency that they have, or maybe a fucking goat to put in the assassin's hideout, etc. There is truth to this. Companies like EA, Rockstar, 2K, Activision, all of these fucking pieces. Anyway, they have often reported just how much revenue. Fuck me sideways. I'm never going to score any review copies, am I? They have often reported just how much revenue they bring in with in-game purchases, and I'm sure that Ubisoft's case is no different. But the thing is, in order for this to be a viable avenue to offset the terrible sales and engagement of the game, you need to have sales and engagement to begin with. This is where those hours played number comes into, because when Ubisoft announced that 3 million players, they shortly after announced 40 million hours played. I don't know why they did this. I don't know if they maybe miscalculated, or maybe they thought that the number was big and strong, or maybe they just counted on people like the Mighty Keef to not do fucking math. Because if you grab those 40 million hours and you divide them by 3 million players, you got an average playtime of 13 hours, which looks a lot like people trying the game out, probably through Ubisoft's subscription service, and then dumping it right after the intro sequence upon realizing just how much worse the quality and the bloat is in comparison to previous games. Naturally, there's always going to be people who went way above those hours played. For example, I'm one of them, of course. I put in at least 80 or 90 miserable hours in this shit. And for example, I watched Vara Dark play the game on stream. I believe she finished it. I also watched Az from Heel vs Babyface play it a few times. Of course, for example, Endymion also played and finished the game. He probably platinumed it. Actually, he did platinum it. So that's hundreds and hundreds of hours across people who played it and didn't even like it. And of course, there's going to be those who played it and did like it. Of course, there's always people, I've always acknowledged this. I wish they'd got better taste. I do, but hey, it is what it is. I like trash too sometimes. I am a big fan of Mass Effect Andromeda. But this only paints an even worse picture of even more people not even playing it for 13 hours and dropping it even earlier. If you're not engaging the players enough to stick around and play it earnestly, then they're not going to be buying the garbage that they're adding into it. There's always going to be some, of course, there always is, but it's not significant. It's not a case of looking at these 3 million players, oh my god, 3 million players, and thinking that all of these people, or most of them, or even half of them, are going to be spending a bunch of money on microtransactions and other forms of monetization. I also hate that this is being used as an argument to defend the game and own the grifters. This is a terrible feature. Ubisoft actually increased their monetization with this game. They added a goddamn battle pass kind of thing to it. There's loads of cut content that's being sold separately to people at exorbitant prices and that should actually be in the game to offer to the player as rewards for their dogshit quests or for exploration, instead of the terrible, boring and unrewarding system in the game right now that doesn't even acknowledge when an area or location has been cleared or completed, just fills it back up with useless, underwhelming loot and enemies after you clear it up. But hey, haha, look guys, Shadows is totally a banger because it's taking these 3 million players and scamming them out of money. Yay! Hashtag own the chuds.
What are you, fucking stupid?
You also never see companies have their games come out and then speak on behalf of their success or lack thereof based on microtransactions. That shit gets reported afterwards, like at the end of their fiscal years, for example. What is always quantified is sales and the revenue from those sales. Name the game where instead of "we are proud to announce that Tez the Barbarian has sold 5 million copies in 1 week." You have an executive come out like, "We are proud to announce that the Banger Scrolls 5 Rizrim has just made $632 million worth of horse armor DLC. I mean, come on, man. Come on, guys. Get the fuck out of here. Why are we coping this much for a Ubisoft game? Why are we coping this much? Why are we rewriting the way that we quantify a game's success or lack thereof with this shit? Man, I thought the Copium with Avowed was bad. This is so much worse. And I'm so tired of seeing this happening. To people like the Mighty Keef, this doesn't matter. None of it does. And it's supposed to embarrass me or some shit that I am quote-unquote angry writing essays. Guess what, big dog? I couldn't care less what you think they should make me feel one way or the other. I wasn't angry writing an essay. I was pointing out lies and deceptions because unlike mouth breathers like yourselves, I don't like to be bullshitted by the media or by some jackass CEO who literally drove his company into the ground. And the only reason that ended up looking like an essay to you was because, well, number one, you've got the attention span of a TikToker, so anything longer than a paragraph is already a problem. And number two, you're so woefully uninformed that before we even engage in a conversation, you have to be fed background information you had no clue about. To me, writing scripts for detailed videos on a matter are essays. That tweet was a fucking Tuesday. If you want to keep being misled and propping up mediocre games from dogshit companies whose sole thing that they're leading in is in how to hit bankruptcy before the next console generation arrives, then be my guest. Go for it, clap like a seal, wave your arms around in the air, consume product, get excited for next product, do whatever you want to do. But it's still not going to make any of those articles or press communications from Yves Guillemot calling this game a success be actually true. They're bullshit. So initially, if I had made this video back when I first saw all of this nonsense, I would have ended it there, because again, we don't really need any solid sales figures or anything like that to show how screwed Ubisoft is. The writing is on the wall on this one, nor do we need it to show how disingenuous that post from Matt Piscatella is. That would be like saying Dragon Age Veilguard was a top seller for X amount of days or weeks as well, which it probably was because, as we covered in the past in this channel, Veilguard also released all alone. There was nothing big to compete against it, but in this case we know how much of a failure the game was because it was admitted by EA themselves. This has been something I don't really understand. All of this defense for such a bad game from such an incompetent lolcow of a company that embodies the problem with AAA. All of its issues can be found at Ubisoft. All the bloat, all the mismanagement, all the unbearable red tape, the workplace morale being so terrible that the developers there feel like nobody is listening to them and there's just nowhere to go. So much so that they're either so bored and disillusioned that they leave to start their own studios to make their own games, like the founder of Sandfall Games, the studio behind Expedition 33, or they are so desperate that they reach out to contact content creators with insider information just to get the word out, just to get somebody to listen to them. Like, I don't get this at all. Accounts like Synth Potato, I can kinda see, you know, they don't really make YouTube content. They don't have their popularity or livelihood attached to their takes, attached to any content that they make. That's why he's got, what, 855 subscribers? It's the same story with very famous accounts that have loads of followers on Twitter, such as Pio or Rhino, but just can't cut it on YouTube. Instead, they exist solely to hype shit up. They're basically marketing organisms. No questions asked, no holds barred, just push product and wait for next product. They're often brand ambassadors and everything thanks to this. And for the most part it works, but it completely clashes with reality and shows how retardedly vapid they are when really bad games come out with real issues and they can't help but defend it because that's all that they can do. It's just their thing. And to some extent I would throw Mighty Keef in there too. I actually didn't know that he had such a huge YouTube channel with comedy skits until making that video 2 months ago. All I really knew him for were his shit takes on Twitter. Like, anytime a matter came up, there he would be giving a terrible fucking opinion. I don't expect much from people like this. Positivity is all they know and is all they do. Authenticity doesn't matter, only the image that they want to put out there does. And that image must be nice, clean, respectable, fun, and whenever possible, professional. So if something bad comes up that looks optically bad to complain about or address, they just don't. They defend it like they defend shadows. Then maybe someday in the future, when it's optically irrelevant or acceptable to be negative about that thing, then suddenly their opinion changes. But the Act Man? He built his brand on authenticity. He was supposed to be all about being a gamer, all about looking at a game and telling people exactly why it's so bad, or why is it so mediocre, or of course, why is it so damn good, or why is it a masterpiece, etc. I know this dude has had many controversies over the years. I know that many saw through the cracks and dipped out immediately during that whole Payday fiasco. But despite all of that, it still amazes me that he is defending this piece of garbage. I can understand defending Starfield. I can understand that because I understand that there's subjectivity in some matters, and then there's also the weight of expectations, then there's also the weight of having that attachment to Bethesda. I was right there with some of these items, you know. I wanted Starfield to be so good that I was ignoring the things that were taken away from my enjoyment and desperately grasping onto the ones that enabled it. It didn't last long, sadly, and inevitably I dropped the game. The negatives outweighed the positives and I just peaced out, hoping to maybe give it another shot someday in the future where I didn't have to worry about a Game Pass subscription running out. But man, Assassin's Creed Shadows? This shit? This is what he's playing soft defense for? This is what he's ditching his integrity and his brain cells for, to the point where he sees the data surrounding the game and he doesn't even find it a bit suspicious, like, maybe this Matt Piscatella post isn't entirely accurate. Let me check if there's any sales data yet. Let me check how Ubisoft's doing these days. Let's see what other games did Shadows beat during these supposed 3 weeks. But nah, none of that. He just buys the information and he makes a dumbass post. Because this piece of garbage game is definitely the one to defend. But hey, it is what it is, I guess. This is who he is now. But anyway, in closing, beyond those estimated March sales numbers that we got from Alinea Analytics, we also have terrible news from their financial reports. Ubisoft reported a 20.5% year-on-year decline in net bookings. To put it as simply as possible, net bookings is a way to measure revenue. They didn't just report losses this year, this has been ongoing. They've racked up over $90 million of operation loss. Let me show you another example of this funny reporting through a Smash JT post. He's retweeting Shinobi's post, which is basically reposting some recent reports from the CEO Yves Guillemot. The way he phrases it, and by he I mean the CEO in his reports, not Shinobi, is as follows. Assassin's Creed Shadows delivered the second highest day one sales revenue in the franchise history behind Valhalla. It also set a day one Ubisoft performance record on PSN. The company expects it to contribute strongly to its 2025-2026 fiscal year. So yeah, it reads like Assassin's Creed Shadows was a hit, but the reality is 92.4 million operating loss, revenue dropped by 20.5%, missed all its estimates and is deep in debt. The CEO drops these reports as he always does, lying as he always does. Just like last year, for example, when he referred to Star Wars Outlaws' failure as a, soft launch. Nobody can beat a Frenchman at euphemisms, huh? I swear I have no idea how this guy is still employed at Ubisoft. It's amazing. This guy is such a rat, he is such a roach. He just always finds a way to scurry around and make it, doesn't he? Even though he's the main cause for this company to crash and burn like this. He turned this company into a lol cow. It had to sacrifice huge chunks of its identity, of itself, even its franchises, to stay alive right now, and somehow he's still on top. I have no idea how the fuck this happens. And of course still no sales figures anywhere. If not for these estimations from analytics, it would all still be up in the air. In many ways it still will, because news outlets, game journalists and shills are not going to report them. They're going to keep hiding the data while lying by omission and pushing whatever the desperate CEO says and the way that he says it as if it was the truth. Ubisoft is literally that fucking meme of that dog inside of a house going up in flames saying, this is fine, and the game news media will literally look at that and report, "Actually, Ubisoft is doing just fine, everyone. The chuds were wrong. Ubisoft is actually reporting sales records, and their game is a return to form." Get the fuck out of here! Did the game sell? Yes, of course. Did it sell as much as it should have for an Assassin's Creed game? Nope. Did it sell as much as it needed in accordance to what it spent, which is sitting around give or take between $300 and $400 million, an estimation reported by experts in the amount of between $250 to $350 million, without accounting for the cost of the delays, which added another $20 million or more, plus marketing. Hell no! Did it sell more than a single fucking indie game, Schedule 1, in a single fucking platform? Nope. Did it sell at least the tiniest minimal amount possible for Ubisoft not to be too embarrassed to come out and actually say the sales figures? Nope. And they could have. I mean, look at Expedition 33. The game is on Game Pass, and yet they still come out and say precisely how many sales they have. Actual sales. At its currently estimated numbers, at best, Assassin's Creed Shadows is close to breaking even. Hopefully. And breaking even is already bad enough as it is for AAA companies. Oh, and by the way, if Smash JT is too much of a greasy Italian chud for you to trust the information from, first of all, I hope you've kept your eyes on the screen so far, because I have been sharing some screenshots on there in reference to what I'm talking about, and just in case, here's Legendary Drops reporting the same thing. It very much is what it is, fellas. Raise your cups with me right now and let's drink to how fucked this company is. Here's to Assassin's Creed Shadows, a resounding success apparently, and here's to these shills carrying on coping and seething over a mediocre game from a company that has been self-destructing while screwing us over for years. At the end of the day, what gets me the most about this isn't even that they're wrong, or that some of them may even at me the way that Mighty Keef did, it's that they're defending the indefensible. There's so much better shit out there that they could be using the time of their day and their social media relevance to signal boost. So much better and more deserving games, but instead, they choose to do it with this pile of garbage. That's just fucking sad, dude. But hey, what are you gonna do, huh? Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like to help out the channel. Subscribe if you're one of the sneaky 60% of the viewers that haven't graced me with such a privilege yet. And yeah, that's about it from me. I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.